Have you ever found yourself wondering how often you should be changing up your exercises in your gym workouts? Should you change them every few weeks, every few months, every other session, or should you never change them? It's a good question. And in this video, while showing you footage from my latest full body gym workout, I'm going to answer it. Before we get started, if you find that this video is helpful, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out. Okay, let's dive in. Muscle growth is driven by exposing your muscles to higher and higher amounts of mechanical tension over time. Exercises that target a specific muscle or set of muscles are a means of exposing those target muscles to tension. Differing exercises that target the same muscle or set of muscles involve exposing your muscles to mechanical tension in different ways. I'm talking predominantly about through different resistance curves and angles. To objectively ensure that you're exposing your target muscles to higher amounts of mechanical tension over time, aiming to progress with the same exercise or exercises is probably the surest way of doing so. By aiming to progress with the same exercises, you'll be ensuring that your muscles are being exposed to tension at the same angles and with the same resistance curves to thereby guarantee that the kind of tension they're experiencing is the same. If you were to change your exercises frequently, say every other session, your target muscles would still be exposed to mechanical tension, but it would be difficult, and I would even say next to impossible, without copious pieces of lab equipment, technicians, and researchers to know if you're exposing your muscles to more or less tension, since the specific angles and resistance curves of each exercise would be different. So in either instance, if you were to do the same exercise regularly or change it or them frequently, you would be exposing your muscles to mechanical tension. The main difference is in not knowing if you're exposing them to more or less tension, aside from your subjective feelings if you were to change them frequently. You could build muscle either way, but it might be argued that sticking with the same exercises with the intention of not changing them often and aiming to progress and get as strong at them as possible is probably the most effective way of making muscle growth progress. Now, that said, that doesn't mean you need to stick with the same exercises forever to make great gains. In fact, there are reasons I would argue that would suggest sticking with the same exercises is not at all the ideal. My own personal preference is to stick with my own exercises for as long as possible to, as mentioned earlier, be able to objectively track my progress. But even so, there are three possible reasons why I would change exercises and often do. I'll list out each of them for you. The first reason why I might change exercises is if I genuinely plateau. In short, this is when I feel I can no longer progress with the exercise for the time being. This can be a tough one to objectively judge since being stuck can come through a variety of different causes and reasons. It could be from being under-recovered, not being mentally locked in, having nagging pain that's getting in the way, or even just from having a stream of bad lifting days that don't seem to have a good logical explanation as to why. And of course, the plateau could truly be from reaching your own current performance limit, leaving you needing to take some time progressing in a different manner to grow before breaking through that plateau. It's definitely worth noting that there are ways of breaking through plateaus without changing exercises, like through changing rep targets, loads, and progression streams. But even so, sometimes swapping out the exercise for something else might be more efficient at the end of the day. It's tough to know either way, to be honest, what's best. It's kind of an imperfect science. I'm just laying it all out there for you. The second reason I might change exercises is if I start to run into nagging pains. One thing is for certain, the body is not invincible, as much as I wish it was. Sticking with the same exercises for long periods of time and aiming to progress with them over that time will lead to some wear and tear. Even if your technique is perfect 100% of the time, which it seldom is for most people, myself included, especially when aiming to push your limits. As a byproduct of that wear and tear, nagging pain can set in, often around the joints and connective tissue. When that starts to happen and the pain doesn't reside between sessions, it's probably a sign that it's time to change exercises. After all, training through that pain will more often than not lead to it getting worse and potentially leading to a more serious injury if you're not careful. And I've got to say, aiming to progress and build muscle with injuries is not a great combination. I can tell you that from lots of experience, unfortunately. And the third reason I might change exercises is if they become mentally stale, blatantly boring, or just too anxiety-inducing. I'll speak for myself and say, I'm not a robot. Although my intention is to stick with the same exercises and progress with them for as long as possible, I'm definitely susceptible to boredom. Lateral raises, for example, are an exercise that are extremely difficult to progress in load and reps with. Sometimes I go for weeks and even months without really progressing much, outside of maybe improving my technique. Naturally, they get a bit boring after a while, and as such, when that happens, I'll often change to a different lateral raise variation in hopes of getting some novel excitement and enjoyment from the newer movement. There are other times where I'll switch when I start feeling a little too nervous or anxious about performing an exercise too. This is most often on the really big technical compound exercises like different squat pattern movements or deadlifts or bench presses. If I'm getting to the point of progressing where I'm not necessarily plateaued, but I'm feeling uneasy about the prospect of experiencing a genuine injury from aiming to progress, then I might change the movement. This can be a very tough call to make though, but sometimes I do it if I feel it's worth it. At the end of the day, progressing by an extra increment will build a pretty trivial amount of muscle, but could lead to a serious injury that might really hold back progress. So if I'm ever seriously questioning the survivability of an exercise, I might change it. And those are the three reasons why I might change my exercises and often do. I want to make a point in saying that for people who aren't necessarily looking to build as much muscle as possible and who lift weights instead to simply develop and uphold a healthy foundation of strength and muscle to support a long, healthy life, they might not need to be as concerned about sticking with the same exercises for as long as possible. Changing every few weeks will still continuously expose your muscles to tension, and probably more than enough of it to maintain a healthy enough level of strength and muscle. And for some people, that might actually be their own personal ideal, if it means making it more likely for them to stick with regular workouts. Above all else, consistency is the most important thing. And for those who have the personality that lends well to changing up exercises somewhat regularly to keep them consistent, then that might actually be the best approach. And there you have it. Whether you change up your exercises regularly or stick with the same ones for as long as possible, you'll be exposing your muscles to mechanical tension. Aiming to stick with the same exercises for as long as possible, however, is probably the best way of ensuring that you make the most significant muscle growth progress over time that you can, since it's the best way of consistently and objectively tracking progress. Even so, there are still a few reasons why changing your exercises is probably ideal, even for those who want to build as much muscle as possible. The three big ones being, 1, if you hit a plateau, 2, if you start developing nagging pain, and 3, if the exercise becomes blatantly stale, boring, or perhaps too anxiety-inducing. At this point, I'd love to know your feedback. Let me know your insights, comments, questions, and personal experiences in the comment section below. Before this video comes to a close, I want to quickly let you know about the work that I do. When I'm not making YouTube videos or making Instagram content, I work full-time as an online physique coach, where I help my clients to accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition, and I coach them through the process. I've been doing this work for over 7 years and love helping my clients to not only transform their bodies, but ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, feel free to hit the link in the description below, where you can learn a little bit more about the work that I do and how it can help you. You can even use that link to schedule a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how I can help you, just email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.